Maya Angelou, in your life you've been all sorts of things. A cook, a conductorette on a tramcar, a madam, a prostitute, a dancer, a singer, an actress, a civil rights activist, a writer. What's given you most satisfaction?
I'm a writer. That's what I do.
I'm gonna lay down my heavy load down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. Lay down my heavy load down by the riverside, down by the riverside.
Many people wonder where my secret lies. I'm not cute or built to suit a fashion model size. When I try to show them, they think I'm telling lies. I say it's in the reach of my arms, the span of my hips, the stride of my step, the curl of my lips. I'm a woman, phenomenally. I walk into a room just as cool as you please, and to a man the fellows stand. I fall down on their knees. And then they swarm around me, a hive of honeybees. I say, oh, it's the fire in my eyes. It's the flash of my teeth. It's the swing in my waist. It's the joy in my feet. Men themselves have wondered what they see in me. They try so much, but they can't touch my inner mystery. When I try to show them, they say they still can't see. I say, oh, it's in the arch of my back. And now you understand just why my head's not bowed. I don't shout or jump about or have to talk too loud. When you see me walking, it ought to make you proud. I say it's in the click of my heels, the bend of my hair, the palms of my hands, the need for my care, because I'm a woman, phenomenal woman. That's my mother and all your mothers, and my grandmothers and your grandmothers, and my great-grand, and my great-great, and all you women, and me.
Yes, Miss Maya. See, I call her Miss Maya because she was the age of my mother and my father. And in my community, I was born and raised on the south side of Chicago, it's a transplanted southern community. So we never addressed our elders as by their first name. So she's Miss Maya to me. And Miss Maya's generation, my mother's generation, a little bit of mine too, you would never talk about yourself in public like that. There was a time where Black women, we stayed in the back. That's where it was safe. And Maya came out and put us in the light. And I'm not the only one it made an impression on. That poem, Phenomenal Woman, was the one that Michelle Obama referenced 10 years ago when she joined her fellow mourners at the memorial service for Maya Angelou.
Her words were clever and sassy. They were powerful and sexual and boastful. And in that one singular poem, Maya Angelou spoke to the essence of Black women, but she also graced us with an anthem for all women, a call for all of us to embrace our God-given beauty.
She was always paying attention. And by the time she started writing her books and her poetry, what she was basically doing was calling our attention to the things she'd been paying attention to. And she did it with a clarity and power that will wash over people as long as there is a written and spoken word.
This was the celebration of a great life. Maya Angelou was one of America's best-known Black women, and she provided huge amounts of inspiration to others.
The loss I feel, I cannot describe. It's like something I have never felt before. She was my spiritual queen mother, and everything that that word implies. She was the ultimate teacher.
A first lady, a president, and the queen of American TV. Not bad. Since then, it's fair to say that no single figure from the world of literature has emerged as Maya Angelou's equal. And after seeing some of the moments I'm about to share with you, perhaps you'll understand why. Because Maya Angelou was a true force of nature. And when she spoke, she had you locked in and you couldn't take your eyes off of her.
You know, when a number of non-black people write about black people in romance, because they are so erroneously informed, they would have us believe that white people make love, and black, brown, beige, red, and yellow people just have sex. They also think they have sex frequently and always successfully. Not. But you can look in the poetry and see and hear romance. Here's a shred from a 19th century folk song in which a black man spoke about the woman he loved. He said, "The woman I love is fat and chocolate to the bone. And every time she shakes, some skinny woman loses her home." I mean, you need to have that, especially when a larger and more powerful society is telling you, you know, you're very nice, but this doesn't come off. I mean, and your hair, ooh, and a whole lot here in the back. You need somebody to say, not only is it all right, it's magnificent. Yes. Yes.
As that appearance demonstrates, as an orator, Maya was never less than magnetic. She oozed charisma, and it wasn't unusual for a conversation or speech to suddenly transform before your eyes into a powerful piece of performance.
I write through the black experience. That's what I know. I'm talking about the human condition, what it is like to be a human being, what makes us laugh, smile, smirk, frown, scowl, stumble, fall, and rise again. What is it in us that makes every person in this room has, at one time or other, gone to bed with fear, or loss, or doubt, or insecurity, or maybe terror, or pain. And each of us has awakened, arisen, made whatever ablutions we could or wanted to make, seen other human beings and said, "Morning, how are you?" "Fine, thanks, and you?" Now, that's amazing. It's so exciting to me that somewhere, I don't know where it abides, this thing, maybe in the kneecap, in the bend of the arm, but wherever it abides, therein lies our nobleness. Not nobility, I think it's a pompous word, but the nobleness of the human spirit, that we actually rise. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still like dust, I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? Just 'cause I walk as if I have oil wells pumping in my living room. Just like moons and like suns, with the certainty of tides, just like hope springing high, still I rise. Did you want to see me broken? Bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries. Does my haughtiness upset you? Don't take it so hard just 'cause I laugh. As if I have gold mines digging in my own backyard. You can shoot me with your words. You can cut me with your lies. You can kill me with your hatefulness. But just like life, I'll rise. Does my sexiness offend you? Oh. Does it come as a surprise that I dance as if I have diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of the huts of history's shame, I rise. Up from a past rooted in pain, I rise. A black ocean leaping and wide, welling and swelling, bearing in the tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. Into a daybreak miraculously clear, I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave, I am the hope and the dream of the slave. And so,
Maya would often describe And Still I Rise as her personal favorite of all her poems. And even decades after it was first published, it has the power to inspire.
Students at the University of Manchester painting over the poem If, one of Rudyard Kipling's most famous works. It's been replaced with Still I Rise by the African-American author and black civil rights activist Maya Angelou.
You may write me down in history
with your bitter, twisted lies.
You may trod me in the very dirt.
But still like dust I'll rise.
I felt angry. I felt a very strong emotional reaction.
These students say it's about challenging ideas about historical figures celebrated on campuses.
We want to make sure those brown and black voices are heard, and that's literally what our students wanted. So that's why we decided to take this stance as a whole team.
And Still I Rise was just one example of Maya's writing that addressed the main themes of her work, race and gender. Big topics to wrestle with, but Maya's skillful use of familiar images and of carefully crafted rhythms and repetitions meant her words connected with people in a way that few can pull off.
I've got the children to tend, the clothes to mend, the floor to mop, the food to shop, and then the chicken to fry, the baby to dry. I got company to feed, the garden to weed. I got the shirts to press, the tots to dress, the cane to be cut. I got to clean up this hut, then see about the sick, then the cotton to pick. Shine on me, sunshine. Rain on me, rain. Fall softly, dewdrops, and cool my brow again. Storm, blow me from here with your fiercest wind. Let me float across the sky till I can rest again, because I've got to see about those people's pool. No, I got to get to the school. Wait, I got to visit the jail. No, I got to pick up the mail. Wait, I got the children to tend, clothes to mend, the food to shop, the floor to mop. I got the chicken to fry, the baby to dry. I got, come here, please, got to try to meet it.
That was just one poem in which Maya championed women and their everyday struggles. But it would be wrong to say that she did not appreciate men too. Sometimes, in the eyes of her friends, a little too much.
Maya Angelou, you seem to have an enormous capacity to give love. You've loved a lot of people. Has love been good to you over the years?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've lost it. I've yearned for it. I've been disappointed. But it puts starch in my backbone, spring in my step. Yes.
And the mischievous glint in your eyes we saw on the front the page of your book.
Yes.
Which man has done most for you?
Now, I can't single out a particular man as a partner man. There have been men who've been brothers to me. And, of course, my son, my grandson. But lovers and husbands and... No. in their time, each was fabulous in his time.
But for all your talk of sexuality and sensuality, it's the mind that you've loved most, isn't it?
Of course. It's true. Men, I forget how men look sometimes. If they really are bright and funny. And so I married one man once. He was a walking encyclopedia and also funny. And so my girlfriends, my sister friends, still do. If I'm around in a group and a man is scintillating, my friends say, Maya, watch it, watch it. So this man, I married him. We came to London for a honeymoon. We came back to the States. He was a stoutly man, stout, portly. And I went over to Brooklyn to the house where I used to live to get some papers. So I introduced my husband to the former landlady. She said, oh, yes, come, I have your papers. I went with her in the back. She said, he fat, ain't he? I said, he is not. I said, he's portly.
Love is blind.
I went back into the living room. That man was huge. But I loved him.
Maya Angelou's eloquence and masterful use of language was not always apparent or to be taken for granted. As a child, words had abandoned her, the result of a hideous event that she talks about here in an extraordinarily open conversation.
You went through that kind of fugue, that period.
Fugue.
Tell us about that.
The fugue, which one? I've gone through a number.
Well, the one after you were raped as a child.
Wow. I became a mute for about 5 years. I figured, I was 7.5. I mean, the logic one is able to create by that time is pretty scant. I told my brother the name of the man who had really, rather critically, I guess all rapes, I don't guess, all rapes are critical, but who had raped me. And he was killed. And the policeman said it looked as if he'd been kicked to death. I thought my voice killed the man.
Your voice?
Yes.
Your accusation?
My voice. If I had not spoken, the man would be alive. So it would be wiser and healthier for everybody if I didn't speak. So I just stopped talking for 5 years.
And that was the striking story of Maya's young life, a tale that always seemed to somehow become ever more extraordinary as the years passed. A teenage mother, a dancer, a sex worker, a linguist, a hit songwriter, a political campaigner, and San Francisco's first black female tram conductor. These were all roles she took on, became part of her legend, and made her unique. But not, she felt, as unique as people would imagine.
Do you think it was a typical experience of a young black woman at that time in the 50s?
I would think so. We are much less unique than we'd like to admit, you know. Our egos force us into thinking that we're terribly one, you know, singular. I think that the black girl or boy prior to the 60s who decided not to go gentle into that dark night had to develop out of the past from one's own parents and family a knowledge that you had to be ruthlessly intelligent, fierce, absolute. And then you put over it a lovely little layer of grace and charm. But underneath of that, about 1/4 of an inch is a ferocity and a concentration so outrageous, it can only be likened to the concentration of somebody about to be executed in the next 20 minutes.
Would you say that women have to fight 2 wars?
I wouldn't dare say that black women had it worse than black men. Black men were lynched, but in a larger percentage than black women, which means that a black American woman is used to struggling, but also used to the approval of the men. It was only in the 60s that we started to lose ground. A number fell victim to that separate and rule. A number of young black men decided to their women, if you really are in my corner, you walk behind me. And a number of young black women did so for a little while. And then they stopped, put skids on, and said, to hell with that. We were bought or sold together on the African continent. We lay spoon fashion in the filthy hatches of slave ships together. We got up and stood on the auction block together. We were bought again together, got up before sunrise, slept after sunset, together, took the lash together, no jack.
Do you think you have a lot to teach, especially young black people?
I go around to universities, sometimes 50 or 60 universities in 3 months, try to chat, and remind people of love, not indulgence, not sentimentality, but real love, which includes respect, not the need to possess, enough courage to try to teach, and then have the mitigated gall to try to learn.
You've come from being a mother, actor, dancer, academic, writer. What else?
Oh, there's so many things. I want to be a better human being, Davina. I want to be wiser. I really want to know so much.
The traumatic events of Maya's life were particularly fundamental to the book that perhaps remains her best known, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. Published in 1969, this coming-of-age autobiography described how her love of language helped her take on her trauma and the racism that surrounded her as a girl. I came to this book, Caged Bird, very late, mainly because I'm one of these people who are allergic to bestsellers, and this book was a monster. And finally, I did come to it, and it said everything that I needed to know and to understand as a black woman. It is a masterpiece.
I remember never believing that whites were really real. White folks couldn't be people because their feet were too small, their skin too white and see-through-y, and they didn't walk on the balls of their heels the way people did. They walked like horses. People were those who lived on my side of town. I didn't like them all. In fact, I didn't like any of them very much, but they were people. These others, these strange pale creatures that lived in their alien unlife, they weren't considered folks. They were white folks.
I was educated by white folks. My parents sent us to Catholic school because it was safer for us to go than to the state school system. And I would sometimes look at the nuns and I would wonder, it's what black people used to call in those days, to see how light skinned you were, it was called the Blue Vein Society. And what you did was, if you turned your hand over this way and you could see your veins, you were considered very light skinned. And white people had these veins. And I would look at them sometimes and think, what's underneath all of that? Because I could see their veins and their eyes were transparent and they had, sort of very small lips. And I didn't think of them as alien. They're just other people. And I was fascinated and always have been by other people. So they always intrigued me. Maybe still do in a strange way. But Maya articulated this in Cage Bird, the feeling that you have, especially when you're a child, and you're coming out of your environment and you're saying something else. She remembered that and she held on to it.
I think I'm a better writer now, and I'm less purple. The prose is less purple. I hope. I'm trying to, my hope, Jonathan, my great prayer is to be a great writer. I love writing. I mean to write it so that every sentence sings off the page. That is my prayer. And to tell the truth.
Would you write it differently now, then?
Oh, I suppose I couldn't write that the same way. No, I know more about my language. See, writing, to really decide that not just the content, but the structure must be just. I have to agree that I need to take a few nouns, a few pronouns, a few adjectives and verbs, ball them together, and throw them against the wall and make them bounce. That's to write.
For millions of viewers in the UK, it was actually another writer who introduced them to Maya Angelou. It was Good Friday, 1977, and British audiences were experiencing what we in America had already seen as a huge television sensation, Roots. Adapted from Alex Haley's novel and only published the year before, Roots set new viewing records in the U.S. and was where most people here got to see Maya for the first time, playing the grandmother of the show's lead character, Kunta Kinte.
What are you doing? Wait! Stop it! Stop it! Warrior, hunter, teacher. You were a dirty bottom baby when I first saw you. And when you forget that, I'll come and remind you again. You can grow as tall as a tree, and I will still be your grandmother. And you will still respect me. Do you hear me?
I hear you, grandmother.
And do you understand that you do not know everything, cannot do everything, and that Allah is still considered greater than you?
Aside from Roots, Maya became familiar to many British viewers as a guest on The Wogan Show.
Maya Angelou.
Terry interviewed hundreds of guests over the years, but you could always tell those with whom he felt a special connection, and Maya was undoubtedly one of them.
Maya, I think we've seen you as an actress in Roots.
Yes.
You played in Roots.
For about 4 minutes.
Yes, weren't you Kunta Kinte's great-grandmother or something?
Well, grandmother. I mean, I know I'm aging even as we speak.
This program's enough to age anybody. But I tell you what, in the heat in here, you lose weight quickly.
Oh, that's nice.
Yes.
I should come again.
And then you're now a university professor.
Yes.
But the early years were a bit... a considerable struggle, weren't they?
Well, hectic is the kindest word one can use. I did a little of everything and quite a lot of some things. I was, at 16, I had a child, and I wasn't married. And my mom, who was a very staid and particular kind of woman, and still is, funny, but stayed, said to me, if I didn't love the fellow who was the father of the child, and he didn't love me, she said there's no reason to spoil 3 human beings' lives. She would not force me to get married, which I thought was terribly generous, and friendly for her. I mean, she makes little cards when she has people over for coffee in the morning, my mom. At 17, I went to work. I put my son on one hip, figuratively, and also real.
But didn't you have your child because, in fact, you were worried about your own sexuality? You were so tall and thin.
Well, that's true. I mean, that's why I want to be invited back to get thin again. But I really was.
Not so you can get pregnant again.
No, please. Oh, please, I draw the line. I mean, no. I will be thin, or I'll just be fat and with no children, no more. I had a very deep voice, and I was 15 and almost 6 foot tall. And I had been through a number of psychological problems, one which made me a mute for 5 years. You know, I had my own platter full. And then suddenly I read about lesbians, and I thought, oh my God, it's happening. I'm going to be a lesbian. So, I mean, I was just, I couldn't seem to develop like other girls, you know. When I pulled my clothes off, I looked like a brown cucumber, you know, little bumps and things. I mean, I didn't look voluptuous and anything. And there was this voice that was coming out. So a fellow I had seen who used to just pass me, he didn't care for me. I'm convinced he didn't. It was just his way of saying hi. He'd say, when are you going to let me talk to you? So one night I thought, no. I swear.
And you became pregnant?
Yeah. It just shows you that, you know, letting somebody talk to you can do
the power of conversation.
I mean,
the spoken word.
That's it.
Yeah.
Conversations involving lesbianism and teenage pregnancies were not regular fare for the Wogan Show, 7 p.m. on BBC One. But that didn't stop Maya being invited back more than once.
You went back to seek your roots. You went back to Ghana.
Yes.
To the west coast of Africa.
Yes.
I mean, what made you want to go there? I mean, apart from seeking...
Well, first, beyond our particular going back, I think there is that in the human spirit which always longs to go home. I mean, every human being, whether it's home to Dorset, home to Liverpool, home to Manchester, people want to, you have that thing, you almost hear the violins, I'm going home.
Yeah, but of course you'd never been to Africa, though, before.
Yes, but we had that image. We thought that when we got to Africa, black Americans, first blacks were taken from the west coast of Africa in 1619. And I don't mean to cast aspersions on my English sisters and brothers, but that was a year before the Mayflower docked. Yeah. You know what I mean?
You got there
we've
first.
Been there. We were the
yeah.
So, I mean, that's all right, you know.
It's okay. You're not bitter about that.
Not at all, no. But the truth is the light, you know what I mean? Anyway, we went back thinking that the Africans were going to say, oh my God, they have come, and meet us at the airport, wrap us in gorgeous robes, drape us in gold, put ringlets on our fingers and bells on our toes. And the Ghanaians said, and we said, we are American blacks. And they said, good. Okay. Oh, God.
Did any of those Americans who did that stay there?
Yes, some did.
But I mean, generally, it was a little bit of disillusion.
Well, disappointment. The disappointment was not just in Ghana, or those who went to Nigeria, or to Liberia. It wasn't disappointment in the country so much as it was disappointment in our expectations. And I found, let me speak for myself, I found that I was an African, yes, but I was an American also. And so I had never thought of myself particularly as an American. But I realized that for hundreds of years, my people, my grandfathers and grandmothers, had built the railroads, had dug the mines, had, worked the cotton and the cane, and their bodies, their bones enriched that soil. The sweat from their brow and their blood and their tears had moistened that earth. So the United States, that's my country. I understand that. Now, I will always be an African. I mean, nobody looks at me and suspects that I'm Swedish. You know what I mean? So, there is that in it. I will always be an African. But I am an American, and I am an American.
I can relate to Miss Maya about this. I was in Accra, and invited to teach at the film school in the early 90s, screenwriting. And like most people of my generation, I changed my name to an African name when I was at university, an Akan name. we saw ourselves as African people. And then I went to Accra and taught at the film school, which was a great experience. I mean, I got off the plane, people were there saying, welcome home. And I was in the hotel and people said, welcome home. And it was wonderful. And then at the end of my teaching week, I decided to take a tour to Elmina, which was the slave fortress on the coast, the Atlantic coast, where maybe my ancestors were shipped from, I don't know. And I saw all of the, the dungeons, slave dungeons and everything, and it was horrible. And then I went to the ramparts, and I looked over the edge of the castle, and I looked down at the Atlantic, which is quite fierce at that point, and I felt I felt happy, I felt proud, I felt overwhelmed, because my ancestors had decided to live. They decided to face that Atlantic wall. I mean, I wear this scarf sometimes. This is called The Middle Passage by Sir Frank Bowling, the great Guyanese British artist. And this is the void. My ancestors faced the unknown, and they survived. So I'm a citizen of the boat, not of Africa, not even so much of America, but of that Middle Passage. All of us, I think, who are African descent in North and South America, in the Caribbean, we are all citizens of the boat. So I don't see myself as an African. I see myself as a citizen of all those nations on that slave boat who decided to stay alive. And that, to me, is what Miss Maya is saying. That yes, my cousins are Africans. I'm happy to see them, but I'm not them. I'm something else. It was in Africa that Maya had met and befriended Malcolm X. And the plan was for her to start working with him once she got back home. But her return coincided with one of the most notorious events of America's civil rights struggle.
I came home. I spoke to him on Friday from the airport. And he said, I'll come and get you. I said, no, I have to go directly to San Francisco. I didn't want to stop in New York, but to have a time to adjust myself. So I told him I would come back after a month. I went to my mother and my brother in San Francisco. I was there 2 days. And a woman friend telephoned, and she asked me, girl, why did you come back to this crazy place? So I said, I came back because I think I have something to do. She said, these people are crazy here. Otherwise, why would they just have killed that man in New York City? As soon as she said it, I knew that man was Malcolm, and that he had been killed. And it so threw me. I mean, it just turned me upside down. I don't know if you've ever been in an earthquake.
I haven't.
Well, I mean, all of the natural disorders and orders, the hurricanes, the tornadoes, floods and so, are terrible. Avalanches. The earthquake, however, moves your whole earth. From under, it's the most bizarre feeling, as if there is nothing, no place that is steady. And that's what I felt. I all but capsized into madness.
Malcolm was just one of the key figures of recent American history who found their stories wrapped up with Maya's and the path that took her from political protester of the 1960s to presidential favorite. Perhaps the culmination of that journey came in 1993 when viewers across the world watched as Maya recited her poem On the Pulse of Morning, written especially for the inauguration of America's new president, Bill Clinton.
I am that tree planted by the river which will not be moved. I the rock, I the river, I the tree, I am yours. Your passages have been paid. Lift up your faces. You have a piercing need for this bright morning dawning for you. History, despite its wrenching pain, cannot be unlived, but if faced with courage, need not be lived again. Lift up your eyes upon this day breaking for you. Give birth again to the dream. Women, children, men, take it into the palms of your hands. Mold it into the shape of your most private need. Sculpt it into the image of your most public self. Lift up your hearts. Each new hour holds new chances for new beginnings. Do not be wedded forever to fear, yoked eternally to brutishness. The horizon leans forward, offering you space to place new steps of change. Here, on the pulse of this fine day, you may have the courage to look up and out and upon me, the rock, the river, the tree, your country. No less to Midas than the mendicant, no less to you now than the mastodon then. Here, on the pulse of this new day, you may have the grace to look up and out and into your sister's eyes and into your brother's face, your country, and say simply, very simply, with hope, good morning.
Human beings are more alike than we are unalike. And in everything I write, whether it's music and lyrics for Roberta Flack or B.B. King, or poems or books or essays, all I'm trying to say, or what the main thesis is, human beings are more alike than we are unalike. So in the poem On the Pulse of Morning, I introduced that thesis. I used the rock, the river, and the tree because in all my work I go to the African American canon for themes, whether I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, or all my books are entitled, and my poetry, I reach back. In the 19th century, there was a song about the rock, which is still sung in black churches, and it's, oh, I went to the rock to hide my face. Rock cried out, no hiding place down here. So in my poem, I say, the rock says, you may stand on my back, but don't hide your face. And the river is from two songs. It's from Deep River, but it's also from I'm gonna lay down my sword and shield down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. Lay down my sword and shield down by the riverside to study war no more. So in my poem, I say the river sings and says, if you will put down your arms and study war no more, come, plant. And then the last poem, the last image is the tree. And it was my grandma's favorite song. And she sang, she's a tall woman, taller than I, and I'm 6 foot. And she sang, I shall not be moved. I shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the water. Oh, I shall not be moved.
Words had always been Maya's first love. Even as a girl, she had an awareness of Shakespeare and Robbie Burns and felt strongly that they belonged to her, a poor black child in Arkansas, just as much as anyone growing up in the United Kingdom. And in 1996, she explored that sense in a BBC program that took her to Ayrshire to meet fellow Burns enthusiasts and hear recitals of his poetry, whilst also sharing a work of her own.
Our people, for centuries, were obliged to laugh when they weren't tickled and to scratch when they didn't itch. And when I listen to Burns and read Burns and see that cutting edge, which we see in Trois Dogs, I think of one I wrote for a woman who rides a bus in New York City. She's a maid. I used to watch her because she'd laugh. But when I really looked at her, she wasn't laughing. She was simply extending her lips and making a sound. And I realized, oh, I see. That's that survival apparatus. 70 years in these folks' world, the child I works for calls me girl. And I say, yes, ma'am, for working's sake. I'm too proud to bend. I'm too poor to break. So I laugh until my stomach aches when I think about myself. And my folks can make me split my side. I laughed so hard, I nearly died. The tales they tell sound just like lying. They grow the fruit, but eat the rind. I laugh until I start to cry when I think about myself and my folks and the little children. But then we wear the mask. I really believed that we were going to make a film about Robert Burns as seen and experienced by me, Maya Angelou. But what I've found, what I've learned, is that Robert Burns belonged to me. I thought I knew that before we began, but now I really know.
Maya was a tireless champion of poetry, always arguing that the next generation of readers needed to have their horizons expanded, a message inspired by her fundamental belief in the power of words to bring people together.
I hope that there are teachers here. I hope that you will encourage your students to read the African American poetry. Encourage them, please, to read Derek Walcott, the Caribbean poetry, and to read Garcia Lorca. Encourage them so that they will know, then you mean to say that we really are that similar? Really? So let me just read this little poem. I note the obvious differences in the human family. Some of us are serious, some thrive on comedy, some declare their lives are lived as true profundity, while others claim they are living the real reality. The variety of our skin tones can confuse bemused delight. We are brown and pink and beige and purple. We are tan and blue and white. I've sailed upon the 7 seas and stopped in every land. I've seen the wonders of the world, but not yet one common man. I know 10,000 women called Jane and Mary Jane, but I've not seen any two who really were the same. Mirror twins are different, although their features jibe, and lovers think quite different thoughts while lying side by side. We love and lose in China. We weep on England's moors. We laugh and moan in Guinea and thrive on Spanish shores. We seek success in Finland, are born and die in Maine. In minor ways we differ, in major we're the same. I note the obvious differences between each sort and type, but we are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike.
Despite what seemed to be her bottomless supplies of positivity, Maya once said she thought she'd never see a Black American president in her lifetime. Barack Obama's victory in 2008 was therefore one of the genuine thrills of her life. It affected her entire body, she said, so even her hair was happy.
I am Maya Angelou. I am a poet. What I'm going to say to you now, however, is not a poem. It doesn't pretend to be. These are ruminations or reflections upon the advent of President Barack Obama. We needed him. We, the race, needed him. We, the American population, we needed him. Banks and automobile companies and insurance companies needed him. The stock markets in Japan and Germany, in France, in Britain, in China, in New York City needed him. And out of that great need, I believe, he came, Barack Obama, facing forward, including everyone, excluding no one. He came with some charm, not enough to make him seem glib. But what he did is he brought something we cannot live without, and that is hope. He brought a possibility that we might really see ourselves as we really are, a great country. I believe in the secret part of every heart of an American, there is the desire to belong to a great country. President-elect Obama offers us the chance to have a great president with whom we can identify, not as a Black person, not even as a male, but really as an American citizen who will speak for the voiceless, who will not forget the poor Black or the poor white, who will remember the out-of-work Asian and the dislocated Spanish-speaking person. It is said, to whom much is given, from them much will be expected. I believe we have been given a great president. I believe he needs us probably more even than we needed him. I believe that each of us, each American, has got to pay back or pay it forward. I think each of us has got to do something to help us to become more than what James Baldwin called these yet to be United States. I think our new president deserves all our help. I believe we, Americans, deserve the most we can get. I believe we are a great people, and I believe we will have a chance to show it. I will be working alongside, being of use. I hope to see you being of use. I am Maya Angelou, poet, American, I'm happy to say, a citizen. Thank you.
I'll leave you with one final moment that once again captures all that was great about Maya and underlines why and how she was loved by the cameras, by audiences, and television hosts. Because guests as good as this, they're hard to come by. But Maya Angelou was the perfect cocktail of talent, temperament, and timing. And her words, written and spoken, then and now, are destined to always soar off the page and sing.
It is when you see him walking barefoot in the rain, and you know she's tripping on a one-way train, you need to ask, what's all the killing and the thrilling, the lying and the dying all about? Take time out. Take a minute, feel some sorrow for the folks who thought tomorrow was a place that they could call up on the phone. Take a month and show some kindness for the folks who thought that blindness was an illness that affected eyes alone. When you see him running barefoot in the rain, and you know he's tripping on a one-way train, you need to ask, what all the bleeding and the needing, the beating and the cheating brought about? Take time out. Oh, you can sell your soul for money, then run off to the country for your cookouts and your parties on the lawns. While your children seek sedation in Eastern meditation or visions that go shooting up their arms. When you know that youth is dying on the run, and my daughter trades dope stories with your son, we ought to see what all that selling and the yelling, the spying and the lying, the killing and the thrilling, the beating and the cheating brought about. We ought to take time out.
Maya Angelou.
I'm gonna lay down